I cannot believe how long it's taken me to find one of these in excellent condition, but that day has finally come, and here we are. The Macintosh LC II, while not a terrifically great Mac, is one of my favorites. In fact, it may be my all-time favorite Apple product of the malaise era. The malaise era for Apple is roughly between 1990, 88, 89, 90, somewhere in that region, to about 1998. And it was, interestingly enough, and I'm sure it's unrelated, but it was a period in Apple's history when neither of the original co-founders was involved in the company's operations. Now, the Macintosh LC II was kind of the updated version of the original Macintosh LC. The LC II was released in March of 1992, and it dropped the second floppy port option of the original LC. The original Macintosh LC could be ordered with 2 floppy drives and no hard drive. But the LC II was kind of the point where Apple finally came to the realization that you need a hard drive, so let's just drop that nonsense. To me, the LC II is one of the most beautiful Macs ever produced. I know that's a highly controversial opinion, but it is absolutely gorgeous. It has nice, clean lines. It features the very last, in fact, this is the last of the Snow White era in Apple's industrial design language repertoire. It still features the side strakes on the display and the system unit. It still features this recessed line in the front, which is in line with the floppy drive. This is like an embossed line. As a matter of fact, that particular line also was included in the design of the Macintosh Classic and the Classic II. The minimum operating system that the LC II will run on is System 701, and it will also run as high as System 761, but I find that it runs better on 7.1. But, like I said, it will run... Actually, it turns out it'll also run 608. Yes, I'm reading that right off the wiki page. Like, I'm going to remember all these facts. Give me a break. This is the original keyboard to this machine. I got this computer today from its original owner. The original owner worked for a school district in another state, and he bought one brand new as a way to learn Mac OS as machines were starting to come into his school district. So this one never really saw the inside of a school, which is unique because so many of these were beat up in schools because they were so popular. They were expensive, but they were fairly inexpensive in terms of the Macintosh realm. If you were a consumer, there's a better chance you would have purchased a Macintosh Performa 400 or one of the many variants. Later in the LC2's production cycle, they changed the case design to eliminate the side strakes and other design elements unique to the Snow White era. Now, the Snow White design language was aptly named after the 7 dwarves, which were the code names used for a variety of Apple products released at that time. I don't know exactly which products were which, but you can look that up yourself if it's something that really interests you. So what can I tell you? I mean, on the LC2, I wanted one for a couple of reasons. I look at this thing and it's soothing to the eye to me. It's such an amazingly simple yet beautiful case. The monitor, this particular monitor with this case, it just works for me. A lot of these are purchased with the upgraded monitors, which had a detachable base or a swivel base, and I believe that was an option on this monitor because if you look underneath, there's a recession for it. But let's go ahead and pop it open, and we're going to take a look inside, and I'm going to tell you a couple of things to look out for when buying one of these. As you can clearly see, there is some discoloration. This is where the microphone was attached, and you can see how it shaded the side of the monitor, which was likely facing a window. And what I may do in the future is I may end up doing the whole retro bright thing on this whole system. I'm hesitant to run out and do it. It's a lot of work, and it requires you to basically set aside an entire day and watch the sun. Oh, it's so fun. I did the 2GS, and it came out all right, but I'm not so sure I want to do this one. It's just a lot of work, and you have to completely disassemble the machine down to its bare parts. And doing that on something that's 28 years old is very risky. But I may do it, I may not. As an aside note, I picked up this color StyleWriter 1500. This is a brand new in-box StyleWriter 1500 from 1992. Yeah. No, really. I can't believe I found that. But it was part of the same deal. It was a package deal. He sold me the LC2, the printer, a complete CD300 system with the speakers that go with it. These speakers have dual inputs for the computer and for the CD drive. I already have one of these drives, but it's not in as good condition. This one is beautiful. Missing the caddies. Fortunately, I have a bunch of those. So let's go ahead and open up the LC2, and we're going to take a look at what makes it so cool and so unique. So one of the great things about the LC2 is just how easy it is to service. So we're going to just unplug some stuff here and pop this top cover off. Like the Macintosh 2, the Apple 2GS, and a few other, I think there was a couple other models that featured this same concept as well. I think even the Mac Portable was fairly similar. You really don't need any tools to disassemble this entire machine. So to remove the hard drive, you simply undo the SCSI connector here. And I can tell this one's probably never been taken out. And release these two clips. And the entire drive carrier simply pops right out. Oh wait, you have to do it from this side. There we go. Now I've owned quite a few of these LCs, LC2s and 3s. Over the years, back when they were really worth nothing. They're reaching a point now where they're actually getting valuable. So when I found one locally on Craigslist, I had to snap it up. I could not pass it up. There is no way I wasn't going to buy this thing. Because like I said, they're getting hard to find and they're getting expensive. A lot of the older Macs are falling into that category. When I was in high school, one of my first exposures to the repairing Macs really was on an LC2. The IT department in my school district had about 50 of these things just sitting in a corner. Now this was in 2000. No, this was in 1999. In fact, we had stacks of LC2s just sitting around, and I asked the computer technician what the plan was for them. And he told me that what they wanted to do was fix them up and use them for word processing and place them in areas where new computers were not budgeted for. So I said, well, I need community service hours as a graduation requirement, so why don't I work with you guys and I'll help you fix them up. At the time I was more of a PC guy, and I didn't really know much about Mac OS. So my first real experience with servicing Mac or Apple hardware was on an LC2. So we just completely disassembled the entire machine, and it didn't take us more than a couple minutes. That's it. That's all there is to it. Just like that. So I succeeded in getting all 50 of these machines running. In fact, I had to swap some parts around. Some of them had broken cases. Some of them had bad hard drives. And so I managed to get a good percentage of them going again. And what I found was quite interesting is that if you have an external hard drive, and I didn't know that because I was from the PC world, basically, so I hadn't really experienced this before, but you can simply copy a live OS onto an external hard drive and then copy that onto another Mac. And it's like, it just works. I found that to be not only intriguing, but such a time saver. But Apple did use pretty high quality hardware back in the day, and just as they do, I mean, today I would say they're still using pretty decent hardware in their systems, but the Apple IICs, I'm sorry, the the Macintosh LC2s were just very reliable. Now, I will talk about one more thing with these, which is a common issue, actually. So now is a good time to talk about what goes wrong in these LC2s. In fact, really any classic Mac for that matter. Well, one of the biggest problems with these Macs is even on their low-cost models, they still use SCSI drives. 50-pin SCSI 1 hard drives. And that became a liability as the machines got older because it's harder to find a working hard drive for these things because you couldn't just buy an IDE drive off the shelf and format it and be off and running. The problem with these drives is that just like any hard drive, as they get older, they begin to develop problems. They wear out. Some of the rubber parts in the quantum drives and the Connor drives would cause the entire head assembly to stick in place. I found that some of the older quantum 40s and 80 gig megabyte drives, megabytes, not gigabytes, we're talking 1992 here, some of those drives would develop a stiction problem where the heads would stick to the platters. So replacing these drives is often quite difficult, and believe it or not, some of these hard drives are worth more than the computers that they're installed in. So you'll find that less valuable Macs are starting to be stripped of working hard drives and being placed into more valuable models. Fortunately, this particular LC2 was fitted with an IBM drive and not a Quantum, so it's still running. Amazing. But I find that most of the problems are associated with the Connors and the Quantums. These IBMs, they seem to hold up. In fact, I found one of these on eBay and I bought it for my Classic, which is behind me, and it still runs great. Another problem with these LC2s, and really isn't unique, it's not unique to any one particular model. Another major problem that is plaguing these vintage Macs is capacitor failures. And again, the LC2s, the Classics, the Classic 2s, some of the SEs, and even as far into the mid-90s, they're starting to experience capacitor failures that is causing some unusual problems with these things. So this cluster of capacitors right here, and they're all leaking. I can tell you right off the bat, there is absolute leakage here. You can see that this entire section of the board, I don't know if the camera can pick this up or not, but there is an oily film that's covering all of this, and it's a little sticky. Well, that's electrolyte leaking from these caps, and it has to be dealt with at some point. As of right now, the system doesn't appear to be showing any symptoms of a malfunction, but that's not going to last. What I really need to do is recap this entire motherboard. It's a risky procedure because it's hard to do without the right equipment and without patience. Buying the capacitors isn't too bad. There's actually a gentleman who has created a list of capacitors for each model, which capacitors need to be purchased in order to get the job done. And they can be purchased either on eBay or Mauser or any other electronic supply store. But that's a big problem. And one of the symptoms that you'll find with this machine is you'll hear like a buzzing sound coming through the speaker. That's when it really starts to hit. If you start to hear that buzzing sound or a whistle, it's not the power supply, it's not the fan, it's the caps. And I found that my Classic over there, which is one of the first ones I ever fully recapped, that one, it would intermittently boot. I wasn't able to format the hard drive. It had all kinds of weirdness, but one of the biggest symptoms, one of the worst symptoms, was there was no sound. Very little sound, in fact. But I know that the symptom on the LC2s often manifests as a buzzing or a whistling sound through the speaker. Now, another one that is kind of a pet peeve of mine is broken DisplayPort bosses or threaded inserts. These tend to be pulled right out, especially if they were used, if the machine was ever used in a school district, where the equipment is constantly being moved for cleaning purposes and, manhandled by students. These always get ripped off, but this one still has all of them, which is quite unusual. Quite unusual. So that's good. This is a good one. And when I try to acquire vintage equipment like this, I try to stick with equipment that was owned or used within a home rather than a school district, because you wind up with equipment that isn't as well used up. So reassembly, once again, is pretty simple. The hardest part of getting the LC2 back together is getting the front part of the top cover aligned correctly. Takes a little bit of finesse, and then you just lock it down. I have never seen an LC2 that actually had the screw in this spot here. I've never seen one. So I don't know if they ever came with it or not, but I've never seen one with a screw in that little screw hole. Let's take a look at these speakers. Now these I have never seen in my life. I've never seen a set of these before. But these are part of a multimedia kit that was available for Macintosh models in the early 90s. And it was the same kit for whatever desktop Mac you owned. And they feature a unique way of managing the cables. These cables are incredibly long. You could basically set one up there and put one over there and really surround yourself in 90s digital audio if you really wanted to. And they're adjustable. This little piece of plastic here can be moved up or down based on personal preference. But I don't want to move it too much because it's old plastic and it could be brittle and I don't want to break it. And interestingly enough, deep within my parts, just junk parts, I've got one of these, a brand new microphone, which I won't put on yet until I decide whether I'm going to retrobrite it or not. But I have a brand new microphone for it. It's designed to attach, well, you can clearly see where it was. So let's fire it up. Now rather than boot it off of what's on the hard drive right now, we're going to do a complete OS reinstall. And I've got a copy of the system disks right here. This is not from this exact machine, but it should do the job. But before we do that, we're going to want to clean the drive heads. This machine's been sitting for a long time, and I don't trust the floppy drive at this point. So I'm going to load this up with some alcohol, and we're going to get that done. The LC2 is also one of the last Macs to ever feature a mechanical power switch, at least as a primary means of turning the machine on and off. The drive spins up nice and smoothly, which is a good thing to hear because these hard drives are getting very, very hard to find. So it's doing a floppy seek. It's going to boot out the hard drive anyway. That's fine. This has the RAM doubler installed, which is something I really don't care much about. It's booting up in color. So one of the things that you want to know about, on these older Macs, if it boots up in black and white mode, the PRAM battery is likely dead. Simply popping in a new PRAM battery and setting the display preferences will usually fix that. But if you find one of these continuously booting in black and white mode, just realize that that's all it is. It's nothing serious, just a dead battery. Let's put the disk in there again. I think that's good enough. Fortunately, we found one with a working floppy drive. More often than not, you'll find that the floppy drive will not eject. But don't worry, that's easy to fix. I did make a video at one point on how to fix floppy drives using some lubricants and a little bit of alcohol. They're really easy to fix as long as nothing is physically broken. Usually they just get gummed up, which isn't such a serious issue when you think about it. Let's go ahead and boot it up on Disk Tools. Now the OS that's currently installed appears to be, wow, 618. We can do better than that. Let's see how these speakers sound. I'm going to open up the sound control panel, and we're going to see what we got for system sounds through these speakers. We got good volume. It's not bad. I think we're good. Okay. I'm also looking at the display. Now, I'm looking for a couple of different things. Number one, pin cushion. Now, both of my Apple II monitors have a little bit of pin cushion going on, and that is fixable, but I really don't want to mess with it until it becomes a real problem. But as you can clearly see, this display is nice and square all around. No pin cushioning of any kind. I'm also looking for signs of alignment problems. When the thin magnets that align the electron guns start to lose their magnetism, or when the capacitors begin to fail and the electronics are no longer within spec, you'll find that there are some alignment problems where the colors no longer converge correctly. This one doesn't appear to have any of those symptoms. It's actually in remarkably good condition. The display is good and bright, and when I bring the brightness all the way up, they're going to lose, they do generally lose a little bit of focus when you bring them up to max, but this one seems to be holding its own. Yeah, I would say this one's in really good shape, which is pretty good, and rare. Oftentimes, when these LC2s were used in public school districts, they tend to have more issues with the displays than anything else. Let's set it to a color background and see how that looks. So that's nice and rich. Very good, very good. I think I really hit the jackpot here. I mean, this machine, for what I paid for it and what I got, I cannot be dissatisfied at all. I didn't pay a lot. I mean, I did pay a lot. I think I paid really all the money for it. I won't tell you what I paid, but let's just say it was just at the cusp of worth my time. If I had paid any more for it, I would have had to really second guess my decision. Let's put it off of Disk Tools and see what we get. These speakers sound amazing. For 1991 Apple anyway. Or 92. Okay, that copy of Disk Tools apparently is no good. That's alright, I've got others. Okay, I'm on my fourth copy of Disk Tools. This one, I don't think this one works. Let's see what we get. They have... Interesting. I haven't had so many issues with Disk Tools since ever. Oh, wait! I think we found a copy that works. Yeah! There's always the last one you try, and it's, interestingly enough, the last one I have. Alright, looks like we're all booted up. I found a copy that actually does work, and we're going to erase Mac HD. I'm going to run Disk Tools, and we're going to initialize the disk, probably for the first time in 27 years. Okay, did it work? It did. The drive is now formatted. We're going to update the hard drive driver and quit. Now we're going to restart. And we're going to pop in the install disk. And to my surprise, the installation was actually successful. So we're going to just quit the installer. We have now upgraded this machine from Mac OS 6 to Mac OS 7.1. Got to keep these together so I know they're good. Alright, what's going to happen? Let's see. So it came up in black and white mode because that is what the last setting I believe was. So we're going to change that to color. The monitor's control panel. Oh, look at that, 256 color. Oop, that's black and white. Here we go. Ha! Color. Nice. We got color. Now, how much memory is in this Mac anyway? Let's find out. Probably not a lot. Now, the Mac LC2 has a ceiling of just 10 megabytes. I bet you this one has 4 or 8. It's got 8 megabytes installed. Ceiling is 10, so there's no point in adding any more, I guess. It is pretty slow, though, I will say that. It's a little sluggish, but, you know, it is a very old Mac, so, you know, what are you going to do? There we go. I think we're in good shape, guys. Well, that's going to conclude our video for today, the Macintosh LC2. When we come back, we're going to take a look at that new in-box Color StyleWriter 1500. Hopefully it works. But my money's on the ink being turned to gelatin, and it's just not going to happen for us. Oh well, we'll see when the time comes, and thank you again for watching. Have a great day. The good news is, several hours of sitting here idling, running after dark, this Mac is still going. The display is still as crisp as it always was. The hard drive sounds fantastic. I don't hear any spindle bearing noise at all. I think I got a good one. We got a good one. Sweet. So I want to talk a little bit about solid-state drives and vintage computers, and what my thoughts are on that. Now, every time I upload a video of a vintage computer, it doesn't matter what it is, I always get 10 to 20 dozen people in the comments box hammering on about SSDs and why I need to buy one. So, I understand why somebody would do that, and why they feel everyone should know about the SSD thing. Yes, there is a solution to failing hard drives, and it is, in fact, a solid-state drive. Okay? But I'm going to talk a little bit about myself and the kind of collector that I am, and why solid-state drives are just sacrilege on vintage Macs and vintage PCs. Part of what... Alright, go to a car show, right? You see a sea of beautifully restored cars. And you walk up to what looks like an unrestored 1930s Willis Coupe. And you open the hood, or the hood's open. You look, you peer inside. You never open the hood of somebody else's car at a car show. Just don't do it. You look at what's under the hood, and what do you see? A fuel-injected Chevy 350 V8. Small block Chevy or whatever. Some guys look at that and say, nice, you know, that thing must really, you know, that thing must screw down the road. And then there's people like me who look at it, you know, and appreciate what the owner did to the car. And the car was ultimately saved from the landfill. But something in you dies inside. You were hoping to see an old Flathead 6 or something like that. And you see a Chevy 350. It's sad. To me, it's a sad thing to see, you know, because the technology of the past for all of its benefits and drawbacks, needs to be preserved. For all of its faults and shortcomings, it needs to be preserved. And to me, when possible, on a vintage PC or a Mac like the one you see here, it's got to have the original hard drive or something close to it. Now, I would change the capacity. If I found a SCSI drive that was a little bit bigger, maybe a 120, 160 megabyte drive, I'd pop it in, sure. But I'm not going to pop in a CF card conversion. I'm not doing it. It'll never happen. You'll never see me do that to a vintage computer unless I absolutely have to, as a last resort. I try to stockpile vintage drives for this reason. And when I come up with a vintage machine that needs a drive, I usually have a spare to pop in there. In fact, with this Macintosh Classic, I actually spent more on a replacement SCSI hard drive that was only about 40 megabytes in size than I would have if I converted it to a solid-state disk or a CF card. I believe it's CF cards they're using on these. It actually cost me more. And I know where I can get the conversion adapter for the SCSI to CF, SCSI to CF adapter. I know where they can be purchased. They're expensive, yeah, but I'm just not willing to do it. Because to me, it matters more to keep the hardware as close to factory as I can, rather than modify the shit out of it and put modern parts in it. It's a personal thing. It really is. You know, when I had a 1970 Pontiac Tempest, and my intention was to keep it a straight 6, because that is what the car came with, and everybody and their uncle is ripping those out and popping in V8s. To me, keeping an original mattered more. It was worth more to me as an original car. That's the kind of person that I am. For all of older technology's drawbacks, I still feel it needs to be preserved so it can be appreciated by future generations. When computer collectors 20 years from now start buying up all of our stuff, all the stuff that I have and the stuff that even you may have, and they look at, there's going to be a premium to be paid for surviving hard drives. I guarantee it. There's going to be a premium to be paid for those. They're going to be worth more. I promise you they'll be worth more. And that's how I see it. Now, in the case of, let's say, a Macintosh PowerBook, for example, an older PowerBook with a SCSI drive, prior to 96, I think, those drives are getting to be almost completely unobtainable in working condition, and that's a fact. They are almost completely unobtainable. They're out there, but they're hard to find. Unfortunately for those, a SCSI to solid-state conversion of some form may be required to keep them running in running condition, and that is unfortunate. That's just life. Now, as it turns to my this thing here, it's been an ongoing battle with my YouTube subscribers and viewers. The thing is, I am keeping the mechanical drive in it. It's big enough. It works. I just rendered this entire video in minutes. I can't believe it. Unbelievable. This thing is so fast. For me, it's all I need. Why do I need to go spend money on a solid-state drive I don't need? Tell me. Why? Look, if you guys want to send me free stuff, hey, find me a sponsor, whatever. I'm not going to pay for it. Just not going to happen. Not right now. I have enough things to deal with. I have mortgage payments to make. I have a car payment to make. I have bills to pay. Come on. Give me a break. Okay. Let's talk about one more thing. We're 6 minutes into this video. Color Style Writer 1500. Not going to this computer. Not going to happen. I'm going to take that out of the box. We're going to set it up. And we're going to run it. The thing is, and by the way, this printer's from 96, not 92. You know, that's a controversial issue in and of itself. Do we open the printer up and use it, or do we just let it sit? The thing is, the ink that is in this printer is likely gone. It's probably turned to gelatin. And I can still buy ink for it, whereas I may not be able to in 5 years. I think it's important that we get it out of the box, we fire it up, we turn it on, we print some stuff with it. Maybe I use it to print greeting cards or something. I'm going to set that up on my Performa 575, because the StyleWriter 1500 is old enough and new enough to have been part of that machine's life at some point, whereas the ImageWriter 2 is just slightly on the too old side. So we're going to take that out of the box and we're going to use it. We're going to do something with it. I didn't buy it so I could look at it and stare at it. I bought it so I could use it. I paid $25 for that printer in the original box, which I think is a good deal, considering it probably doesn't work because the ink is so damn old. But we're going to try it, and we're going to see what it'll do. Alright, well, I think we're good. And like I said, you know, I try to keep things as original as possible. That is my personal choice. If you have a collection of old Macs and old PCs, and you want to throw away all the hard drives and put solid-state disks in, well, that's your choice to make. It is my choice not to. And please, all I ask is that you understand that and you respect that decision. That's all I ask, is a little bit of respect. I respect your decisions, you respect mine. They're my systems. I am choosing not to put solid-state disks in them. Okay? Okay. Real glad we had this chat. Let's roll them up and move them out.